Good morning, student friends. Welcome again to the biology lecture. We'll continue with the chapter control coordination. First part we are discussing with nervous control coordination. Second lecture we'll discuss neural coordination, neural system. But before that, we'll take quick revision what we started last lecture. We say we want to study the control coordination. What is control coordination? Control in a case of multicellular organism require over different life processes. Even we require coordination between the different systems present in the body. And here we have a type of the phenomenon for control coordination. Remember, control coordination in high animal is brought about by system called neuroendocrine system. A neuroendocrine system consists of two units. First is called nervous coordination brought about by nervous system. Second is called endocrine coordination brought about by endocrine system. One by one we want to study. We said first part is called nervous coordination. Nervous coordination brought about by nervous system, and we studied nervous systems of two animal this year. Two we already studied in earlier standard, and we took the coordination, we took the relation between these evolution of a nervous system. First, we discuss nervous system in porifera, and we said we don't have nervous system in case of porifera. Only the division of labor is there in the cell, and that will carry out the activity, different activity like nutrition, etc., etc. So to start with the animal kingdom, we don't have a nervous system in first group of porifera. Best example we took Cyclone. And then we said we have a second Nidarian where best example is Hydra. And the nervous system is of nerve-nate type. We don't have sensory neuron, we don't have motor neuron, we don't have brain there. Only the nerves are present all over the body. And those nerves will carry message from one part to the another part. Even we don't have direction there. Diffuse type of nervous system in case of Hydra. Second, we studied is a planaria, and where we have a nervous system which is little developed. We have a U-shaped brain, ventral nerve cord, double ventral nerve cord is there, and little development is seen in case of a planaria, member of platyhelminthes actually. And then we said two systems we already studied. One in 11th standard, that is cockroach, where we have nerve ring and nerve cord. While in case of a human being, again we are going to study this year the highly developed nervous system made up of a brain and a spinal cord and nerves located all over the body. How is the evolution that we concluded last lecture? We said we have a diffuse nervous system to up to the centralized nervous system. Even we'll have type of a cell called neuron, which are highly developed. They are the one which carry electrical impulse. Few more points we want to study related with this particular in this series. This today we'll study the tissue involved in this particular system. Tissue is called a neural tissue. The tissue which consists of two types of a cell mainly. One is called a neuron, another one is called neuroglial cell. Quick thing we took it in 11th standard. Detail we'll study this year. The type of a cell are called a neuron and a neuroglial cell. First is called as nerve, and this is actually the bundle of axon that come out from the central nervous system. When it is outside the central nervous system, we call it as nerve. While inside the nervous system, these tract, we call it as the nerve tract. Maybe we'll have all three types here: sensory neuron, motor neuron, mixed neuron. We already discussed in 11th standard. The one which will carry message from receptor organ to the central nervous system, sensory. The one which will carry message from central nervous system to the effector organ called motor. And the one which will carry to and fro, means 50% sensory, 50% motor, that is called a mixed type. All these along with the nervous organ that will make the nervous system in body. Higher animal specifically we are talking about that will bring the control coordination in the body. Control coordination in different activities present in the body. Work is done with the help of a receptor which bring in sensory inputs toward the central nervous system. Say for example, eyes are the receptor which will take the information that will be carried with the help of a nerve to the central nervous system. Processing is actually carried in central nervous system. When we say central nervous system, either it is brain or spinal cord, and then the command will be given with the help of motor neuron to the respective organ. Response will be shown by the effector organ. We are going to study in detail. So remember, neural tissue or nervous tissue basically consists of two types of cell, neurons and neuroglial cell. One by one we want to study these cell. First cell is called a neuron. We also call it as a nerve cell. Here I am showing a typical neuron. No doubt we'll have three types of a neuron we studied, unipolar, bipolar and multipolar. Typical multipolar neuron that I am showing here, that is the one which is present in human body in a majority. Neurons are the structural and functional unit of a nervous system. Means these are the neurons that they come together, they form the nervous system, maybe brain or spinal cord. They carry the function of the body in form of nervous function, and so they are the one which are structural and functional unit of a nervous system. Typical multipolar neuron that I am showing, the one which consists of three parts. This cell body is called as a cyton. We'll have a different processes, smaller processes are called a dendron. And then we'll have a one of the long process that is called as axon. So three parts are there, two actually. Cell body with the two types of processes. Cell body is called as cyton and two processes, smaller process called dendron, longer process is called as axon here. Okay. Next, we'll study the one more diagram that I am showing. This is a hand sketch diagram on the board. This is the cell body called as cyton. One of the long process called axon. We'll have a processes here. These are called a dendron. What is the difference between dendron and dendrite? We'll study. Here is the cyton that I have enlarged here for your understanding. These are the processes. They are called a dendron. Branches of a dendron are called a dendrite. Remember. This is the cell body. Cell body contain main and important is the nucleus in the center, and then we'll have thread like a fiber which are present here, the one which are called a neurofibrils. Your cytoplasm here is called a neuroplasm or neuroplasm. This is the cell body, and in addition to that we'll have a special types of granules present here. These granules are called a Nissen's granule. One by one we'll study. The first is called a cell body, we call it a cyton. Four important structure that we are going to discuss. First one is the distinct and central nucleus with the nucleolus that we have. Nucleus contain neuroplasm. As we all know, the nucleus contain nucleoplasm. Nucleoplasm for the nerve cell is called as neuroplasm or neuroplasm. Cytoplasm around the nucleus is clear one, the one which is with those fiber called a neurofibrils. I told you we'll have a granules, connaissance granule, and many other cell organelles will be there. Two we are going to discuss in detail. Nissen's granules are the granules. Nissen's granules are the granules which are actually riboprotein in nature, and their role is a synthesis of a different enzyme required for the formation of neurotransmitter. What is neurotransmitter? We are going to discuss chemical which will be involved in transmission of a nerve impulse from one neuron to the another neuron. These are called neurotransmitters. Okay. Synthesis of neurotransmitter. This is the function of a Nissen's granule. They are actually riboprotein in nature. And second one I told you these are called neurofibrils, the one which are fibers which transmit the nerve impulse here. Remember these cyton with the cell body, they are found in the CNS, mainly brain and the spinal cord. Even they are found in other part of body. Wherever they come together, they form a bulging, and this is called a ganglion. Remember, we already discussed ganglionated nervous system in case of a cockroach. As you may remember, a group of these white matters of brain called basal ganglion. This is ganglia, the aggregation of these cyton, and that will form a bulging that is called a ganglion. So remember, cytons are mainly present in our body, in central nervous system, either brain or spinal cord. And two types of processes. We say the smaller processes are called a dendron. There are many in number. See here, there are many in number. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like this. There are many in number. Dendrons are many in number. They are conical processes. They arise directly from the cyton. They are the one which are highly branched, and their fine branches are called a dendrite. So remember, main branch is called a dendron. Sub branches are called a dendrite. And what could be their function? They transmit message towards the cyton. Towards the cytons means they will carry message in this particular direction, in this direction. So from the dendrite to the dendron to the cell body, this is the transmission of a nerve impulse. And then I told you one of the long process, the one which is usually single The one which is long, usually unbranched. Here in the diagram I am showing branch one, and the one which arises from a bulging. And this bulging is called an axon hillock. See here, this is the bulging that is called an axon hillock. I'll repeat the single process, the one which is long usually, and branch one arise from bulging coaxon hillock, and the one which will contain bundles of neurofibrils inside. Terminally, the one which will give rise to the branches, these branches are called as telodendrite. Here are the branches, these are called as telodendrite. Similar like a dendrite will have toward the distal end, so they are called as telodendrite. And what could be the function here? Axon will carry the message away from the cyton cell body to the distal part. It may give rise to the lateral branches, and these are called collaterals. Remember, terminal branch attaches to the either muscles or gland or skin or telodendrite of another neuron. That will form a junction. Junction we are going to discuss. Remember, bundle of these axons, they are called as nerve actually. So many cell body will produce many fibers of many cell bodies will come together, that will form a bundle, and this bundle is called as nerve. And we'll have two possibilities here: either this nerve fiber is non-medullated or medullated. Non-medullated, when we say covered directly by the neurulema here, we don't have anything here. While in case of a medullated, the one which is covered with the additional sheath, myelin sheath or medullary sheath, and then we'll have neurulema. We already discussed the difference between medullated and non-medullated in 11th standard. Once again, I'll repeat: non-medullated, when we say we don't have myelin sheath, we don't have the node of our anviolar. We know the character. This is present in autonomous nervous system, which will carry the impulse slowly, steadily. While a medullated one, which is with myelin sheath is not continuous, that is interrupted by such a node. Remember, this node is called a node of a ranvier. This is a myelin sheath actually. This is the type of medullated nerve fiber. And here, the one which will carry impulse faster. Conduction of impulse will be faster in case of medullated nerve fiber. That is almost 50 times faster than the non-medullated one, remember. Next one, before we go into the details further, we want to study the coverings of nerve here. Remember, single nerve fiber will never be there in the body. Many nerve fiber will come together. I told you that is called as nerve. See, this is one nerve fiber, another nerve fiber, then nerve fiber. Many will come together, that will form nerve. And many such nerve will come together, and that will form one nerve that will have a different coverings, remember. So individual nerve fiber, here it is said fascicula, individual nerve fiber will have a covering, and this is called endoneurium. See here I am showing. This is total nerve. This is total nerve. It will have so many nerve fiber like this, so many nerve fiber. Many nerve fiber will come together to form one fasciculus, remember. Here, individual nerve fiber will have a covering. This is called endoneurium. This will be inside. So we'll have an axon with the myelin sheath, and myelin sheath will have a covering. First covering, this is called endoneurium. Actually, it is a connective tissue covering, remember. Okay, such a many nerve fiber with endoneurium will come together. That will form one bundle. See, one bundle, second bundle, third bundle. One bundle that is called a fasciculus. And again, this fasciculus will have a connective tissue covering. And this is called a perineurium. Perineurium. I'll repeat. Individual will have a covering called endoneurium. Many will come together, that will form perineurium. See, this one is the perineurium. This is the endoneurium. And so many such fasciculi will come together. And around this large number of fasciculi of a nerve will have a covering. This is called a epineurium. So remember, we'll have three coverings here. Close to the axon myelin sheath will have endoneurium. Many fascicula, one fasciculus will have perineurium. Many fasciculi will have total covering called a epineurium. And inside the epineurium, see, this is the epineurium. Inside the epineurium will have a blood vessel. And these blood vessels will give branches in the perineurium, which will supply the oxygen and nutrient, that will remove the waste. And these are the three different coverings of a nerve. Next topic we want to discuss, and this is second type of a cell called neuroglial cell. I told you they are large in number as compared to the neuron. Name itself gives the meaning. Neuroglia means supportive. Neuroglia means supportive. These are supportive to the CNS and PNS. Remember, central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. These are the one which are supportive cells produced from same embryonic origin, endoderm. Main neurons develop from endoderm of embryo, and these are they are produced from endoderm. Name itself gives, I told you, they are supportive cells. They support the central nervous system as well as peripheral nervous system. Six are there. First one is called ependyma cell. Second one is called oligodendrocytes. Third one astrocytes and microglia. These four are present in the central nervous system, brain, and the remaining two are present in the spinal cord. Sorry, peripheral nervous system. These are called satellite cell and swan cell. Swan cell we already discussed. They are present forming the medullary sheath around the nerve fiber. The details given in the book you can refer. Ependyma cells are the one which additionally, no doubt they help the central nervous system. Additionally, they produce the cerebrospinal fluid, which we are going to discuss in detail. That's it. Is something about neuroglial cell, the one which are supportive type of a cell. Six types are there that I told you. Next, and before we go into the details, we'll study the junction between two neuron, and this is called as synapse. I'll repeat. Maybe one neuron will start from here, that will go up to here. Another neuron will start, that will go up to here. In between the two neurons, we'll have a junction. Remember, from one neuron, impulse will be given to the another neuron, and the junction between the two neuron, this is called as synapse. I'll repeat, a junction between the two neuron or nerve cell, this is called this is a sort of a minute gap we call as synaptic cleft, and the one which will allow the transmission of an impulse with the help of those neurotransmitter bridge. So remember, here this is the cyton, this is the axon. Impulse will be carried in this direction. Another nerve will start from here, this is the cyton, this is axon. The junction will be formed here, telodendrite of one, dendrite of another, and this will form sort of a junction, and the junction with this little gap here. This gap is called a synaptic cleft. No doubt we are going to discuss in the next lecture types and transmission of impulse through this junction. But remember, the junction between these two cell, two nerve cell, this is called as synapse. Synapse we are going to study in detail in next lecture. Before we go into the details of a synapse, today we'll summarize with the properties of this nerve fiber. A few more properties are there. First property is excitability or irritability. It is the ability to receive or perceive the stimulus. The stimulus, I told you, change in environment. If nothing is there outside my hand, this is normal environment, remember. If at all the plate is there, hot plate is there, this is called a stimulus, remember. So the excitability or irritability is the ability to perceive this stimulus, to take this information and enter into the state of activities, to start certain activity. This is the first property of a nerve fiber, because excitability we also call it irritability. They are excitable, or we call they are irritable in nature. Remember, this property is not there with other tissue. This is the property, special property with the nerves. And we said the one which perceive the stimulus, receive the stimulus, and get into the state of activity. Second one, this is called conductivity. Here, it is the ability to transmit the excitation. So whatever the information is taken, hot plate is there outside. Yeah, the information will be taken by the receptor organ. They will be given to the nerve. Remember, nerve will get excited. The impulse will be traveled all the way to up to the brain or spinal cord. And this ability to transmit the excitation or impulse, this is called conductivity. I'll repeat. First property is by excitability. Second property is called conductivity. Few more property we'll study. Next one is called stimulus. The one which is any detectable physical, chemical, or electrical changes in the external or internal environment, which will bring the excitation in the nerve or muscle, organ, organism. This is called as stimulus, remember. I told you in simple word, any change in the environment, this is called as stimulus. Maybe it could be the hot plate present outside. Maybe it could be the someone pricks the pin to your hand. Maybe if it could be the good smell of a food that comes from the house. kitchen, and all these are the examples of a stimulus. Remember, important character I told you they should be detectable. We should able to detect these things. Either they are physical. I told you if someone pin pricks the pin to your hand, this is physical. Maybe the smell that we get is a chemical. Maybe it could be the electrical. Remember, the one which either come from outside or they are produced inside the body. And remember, the one which will produce excitation either into the individual nerve. Maybe it could be the muscles present in your body. Maybe it could be the organ like eye, or it could be the whole organism will run away if a tiger or lion comes in the door. And remember, this is called as a stimulus. Remember, we'll have three types of stimulus actually. Number one is called threshold stimulus. In order to have a effective or effectivity in the body, stimulus must have minimum intensity, and this is called a threshold stimulus. Means it should have ability to produce change in the body, and that minimum intensity, if it is, that is called threshold stimulus. Remember. Now, up till now, you could have not thought for you are listening to my sound, but many other sound that keep on coming in the house or room, in the classroom, and we never detect this because they don't have that much stimulus, that much intensity. Remember, so the threshold stimulus is the stimulus which will have minimum intensity to produce stimulus produce electrical impulse in the body, and this is called threshold stimulus. Remember. Second one is called subliminal or we call weak stimulus, the one which will have no effect, remember. The one which will not produce any impulse in the body, that is called a weak stimulus. Just now I told you, maybe the birds are there creating the sound, they are singing. We might not hear because they produce with a small sound, that is weak stimulus, remember. And what is a supraliminal or strong stimulus? Stimulus which produce the same degree of impulse as that of a threshold stimulus, remember. So it will be with the minimum to the maximum intensity, remember. And the one which will able to produce the strong impulse in the body, this is called supraliminal or strong stimulus, remember. So we'll have a three. Weak will not produce any impulse in the body. Threshold will produce able to produce the impulse in the body, and if it is strong, definitely it will produce the stronger impulse in the body, that is called supraliminal or strong stimulus, remember. Okay, next property is called summation. A single subliminal or weak stimulus might not produce any effect in the body, that will not produce any impulse in the body, but many such a weak stimulus, if they are produced in a quick succession, they are able to produce the impulse, remember. So if someone knocks the pen on the bench for one or two times, this is weak stimulus, remember. That might not produce any impulse, we might not get irritated. But if someone keep on doing the pen like this again and again, that will produce continuous, or the one which will produce stimulus in a quick succession, that will produce the impulse, remember. Okay, so summation effect is the effect of quick succession weak stimulus that will produce addition or summation of stimuli. All or null effect is the law where nerve will either conduct the impulse along its entire length, or it will not at all conduct the impulse. This because of a weak stimulus. This is all or null effect, remember. So either the message will be carried all the way to up to the brain, or it might not be. It might be carried up to here only. This is all or none law, remember. And what could be the refractory period? It is the time interval during which a nerve fails to respond to a second stimulus. However strong if it is, it is about a millisecond, no doubt. This is called refractory period. So if someone go on asking you question continuously, what is your name, what is your age, what is your, now you will able to answer one of the question, might not be the second one immediately, because that period is required or time interval is required to pass one impulse and second impulse. This is called refractory period. Okay. Then we'll have three more properties. Synaptic delay is the impulses that require zero point 0.3 to zero point 0.5 millisecond to cross. I told you just now to pass the synapse. And this time is required for release of a neurotransmitter from axon terminal and excitation in the dendron of next neuron. This is called a synaptic delay. Synaptic delay is just 0.3 to zero point 0.5 millisecond I'm talking about. Okay. Few more detail we are going to study in the next when we'll study the transmission of a nerve impulse. Okay. Synaptic fatigue is the transmission of nerve impulse across the synapse halt temporarily due to the exhaustion of its neurotransmitter. So, if at all the neurotransmitter is not there in between the junction, the impulse will not be carried. This is for synaptic fatigue. We say we have a fatigue. Remember, might be due to the synaptic fatigue. And last one is the velocity. The rate of transmission of impulse is higher in long and a thick nerve. Remember, so the nerve will start all the way from here. That will go to the brain. If it is long and thick one, the one which will have more velocity. Remember two terms that I am giving, even higher in homeotherms than in poikilotherm. We studied this in relation to the classification. Homeotherm, the animal which will maintain body temperature at a constant state. Besides changes in the outside temperature, this is a homeotherm. We are the example of homeotherm. While poikilotherms are the animal which keep on changing the body temperature as per the outside surrounding. Therefore, poikilotherm fishes could be the best example. So we'll have more velocity in our case than in case of fishes. The velocity of transmission is higher in voluntary fiber, 100 to 200 meter per second in man, as opposed to the autonomic or involuntary 10 to 20 meter per second. Best example, whatever these nerves present in hands and leg, they will voluntary fiber. They will have more velocity than the nerve which are present in intestine or digestive tract. Similarly, it is faster in mediated nerve. We discuss mediated nerve as compared to the non-mediated. Mediated because it needs to jump those node of Ranvier member. So 9 properties we took for nerve impulse. That's it. This is something for today's lecture. Types of synapse and few more detail we'll study in the next lecture. What we studied today, we'll summarize quickly. We started with the neural tissue to discuss with, nervous tissue to discuss with. We said we have nervous tissue which is of two type. The functional cells are called as a neuron. Functional cells are called a neuron. The structural and functional unit of our body or nervous system basically. And second one we said these are called a neuroglial cell, type of a cell which are supportive cell actually, and they support the neuron for their functioning. Typical neuron, multipolar neuron we discuss, which is with cell body called as cyton, star shape generally, with the two types of processes, smaller process called dendron, their branches are called a dendrite. And one of the long process we start from axon hillock, and the one which is called as axon, we also called a nerve fiber, remember. The terminal branch is called a telodendrite, which will end into the muscle or with another neuron. Neuroglial cell we discussed, they are supportive cell, and then we studied the properties of nerve impulse starting from irritability, excitability to up to the velocity. That's it. We'll stop here. We started with the topic called synapse, junction between the two neurons, that is called as synapse. And we'll have two types of synapse and how the nerve transmission takes place in these two types of neuron that we'll study in the next lecture. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll continue types of neuron in the next lecture.